This is going to be episode 14 of Morning Miles podcast. We got Ryan Schlup here. Is that how you say it? So I say it right there?
Pronounce it correctly.
All right, awesome. So give us a little bit of a background. Ryan's been working with the Performance Lab for 5 or 6 months now. I met you back at the factory, and if you've been following us for long enough, what the factory is all about. But yeah, just give us some background. What is some of your passion, why you do sports performance, and we'll be able to go in more depth from there.
Yeah, like you said, I started back as an intern at the factory. That was really my first exposure to coaching. Within a few months of being an intern at the factory, that led into a coaching job where I started dealing more with groups of athletes, teams, and then one-on-ones. I guess my passion for coaching, all that came from just doing sports as a kid. When it was time to go to college, I was I know what I was going to study. And I felt like sports was always something I really, really enjoyed doing. I went ahead and pursued a degree in kinesiology.
So a big thing that we want to talk about here today is going to be really looking at how people are, how fast people are getting to their top speed, how fast people are running, how fast they're getting to their top speed. And through that, and in using the one tool system and the McLeod system, it's really given us the opportunity to look at the ability to get to top speed in a different way. And I think it's a lot about being able to really maximize your sprinting mechanics overall when it comes to, especially if you're trying to get faster, but just in your ability to play better in a lot of different sports. I think that the sprinting mechanics can really be something that helps you out in a wide range of different things. And I know you have some background with working with the force velocity profile. But I think you were a little bit, I didn't expand on a lot of the experience. I know you, when you were intern at UCLA or something that I know you talked about being around it. And I'm sure also at CSUN, it was something you guys talked about as well. So yeah, that's the main topic that we want to be able to address is speed mechanics and really going around that force velocity profiling and how you kind of learned about utilizing it for programming and what your experience is, and then what are some of the benefits, what are the things that you feel like you would want to be able to, recommend other people to use it for as well.
Right. Kind of piggybacking off what you said, when I interned at these programs like PLA or Pepperdine, they always had ways of measuring. They're either using video things to measure force velocity, just to kind of tie that back into sprinting, even if they're not sprint athletes per se. But like you said, that always kind of ties into sports performance, and the athlete's going to benefit from that.
What do you think is the best one?
I actually enjoy the one tool right?
Yeah,
that we use with the curve, the dissecting the runners on the curve and then pulling that up on the one tool.
Yeah. And also just having them sprint. Because the big thing that one tool I think does is it gives a lot of clarity in terms of really those two numbers. And we kind of were talking about it because I use the Freelap too. And I don't know how much you like the Freelap, but I think really the Freelap is the best thing when it comes to speed, just because of how easy it is to set up. And it's really not bad from a cost efficiency standpoint. And it just gives you a lot of really good data. And so I like to use that when it comes to being able to see how fast people are running, whether it's 0 to 10, 10-yard flies. And there's a lot of different ways that it's becoming a more commonly utilized thing. And they talk about how they're 2 to 300ths off. With McLeod, they're basically using GPS and saying that it's really accurate when using it. I would say there's definitely accuracy there, but I don't know if it's 100% accurate, to be honest with you. I think that there's some degree, because even when you go through the numbers, you're building, let's say, up to top speed, and then they'll be when you're running 22 miles an hour, then they'll say oh yeah, then there was a 10th of a second where you were running 19, and then you were back up to 22, and it's that doesn't make any sense. But still, regardless, the idea of being able to really create that force velocity profile is something that could be really good when it comes to training over a period of time, because now you could look at it and say, okay, based off of how fast you got to your top speed, or based off of what it is that you are doing well, are you creating a good amount of force in the ground? Are you getting to your top speed really fast, maybe too fast? You can now take a better look and say, does this athlete need to get stronger? Do they need to be working maybe more plyos? Do they need more top speed? And now really create a plan and a program where you could continue to test and see the improvements that you wanted to see.
Absolutely. You actually get numbers that you can measure, and you can compare it to previous results.
Yeah.
Not just going up in the wind and kind of guessing at it.
Yeah. I know. And that's, I mean, how often have you used those type of tools in the past?
I've been exposed to like the like timing gates.
Okay.
I forget the exact name of which ones I've used. I personally have, and the
Okay.
skills.
Yeah.
But I've had trouble like connecting those. They're like Bluetooth. I found that the Freelap is actually the best one that I've ran into.
Yeah. And then at UCLA, what would you guys use with the? Because I know you guys also have, I forgot what it's called with the. It's like a thing that connects to the bar, and like you can measure like the speed of the bar.
Yeah, it's basically to measure the force velocity curve, right,
Okay.
of the lifts. I forget the exact brand that they were using.
And so how would they do that with the lift? So it would just be
So they had like an iPad was attached to the rack, and then that device is connected to the bar, and then depending on what lift you're doing, it just measures in meters per second, like how fast you're moving that bar. And then just depending on the given goal for that day, if you're working power, strength, you want to be within those numbers.
yeah. And so when you were doing it, do you feel like you would use that data to make changes within the programs? Like were people doing different types of lifts based off of where their force velocity profile was?
For sure. And actually going back to that, the way that would get like programmed was they would have force plates and they would do like a single leg jump. They do various like forms of testing on that force plate. And based off of those numbers, those results, they would know if an athlete was more elastic and they needed more strength work, or if they were like a strength power-based athlete. And then they just would work on those qualities that athlete was missing on.
And so how would you do that? If you took two athletes, let's say, and we're going to start a program with them. One of them was really fast, could be brothers, could be friends, whatever. One of them was really fast, maybe not as strong, or maybe not as much stability or balance or something like that. Another one was a lot stronger, was able to create force a lot more naturally, didn't have as much speed. How would you try to be able to differentiate that?
I try to use the exposure that I've had with all the athletes that I've worked with throughout the years and kind of make a decision based off of that. Like, okay, I see this athlete's really springy. I need to work maybe more strength on him. If we're comparing it to speed, if you're working strength, you need to be within a certain range. If you're lifting, let's say we're doing like a trap bar deadlift and you're moving the trap bar at like 0.8 meters per second, you're like within a speed, a power range. And if we want to work those qualities, we gotta load up that bar more and get you moving a little bit slower within that range.
And the reason I talk about this is because I recently really like using it's like this thing on Reddit. Do you use Reddit? Okay, so on Reddit, there's a sprinting like community, and it's like really active. Actually, it's like surprisingly very, very active, which is awesome. And there's a lot of people on there that like ask, "I'm doing this random whatever workout. Like this is my program right now," and it's just very. You could tell that the person doesn't have a lot of background. I mean, even in the idea of going to a social media type platform and asking for advice just shows that there's potentially some degree of somebody that just doesn't have a great understanding of what's going on with that, right? And so I just see a lot of people that have a very kind of basic level of understanding of what is important when it comes to programming. I would say to go off of that even, a lot of people are not really utilizing something that really gets a lot of benefit by using McLeod, which is being able to really maximize top speed. Like there was a lot of people that were like running 150s or 200s or really concentrating on that type of stuff within the program. And I know you have a track and field too, you're a track and field coach at a local school here. And I'm sure some of the programming is kind of similar. I mean, it's a lot of kind of long distance running, right? Where I think you've seen with what I do, I focus a lot more on like a 10-yard fly, 10-meter fly, 20-yard fly, and really like what much faster can we get you? Like what's your top speed? And using that to be able to improve the performance of a particular race or a particular test when it comes to maybe running a better 40 or better 60 or whatever. I mean, just developing top speed in general. Like if you're always running 200s, at the end of the day, like you can't hold or sustain a top speed for 200 yards or 200 meters, 200 yards, whatever. Right. Same thing with even the 100,
really training top speed.
Yeah. Yeah. And so I think really top speed is going to be maybe if you're really efficient runner, you can maybe hold top speed for 40 meters. in my opinion. And or like what's close to top speed. Like at the end of the day, there's going to be probably a 10-meter gap where that's your fastest gap. And so I just want to be able to continue to build speed off of that specific 10 meters, right? Or specific 10 yards and make it so, let's say I can work with somebody right now. We start off with 119 in a 10-meter fly, right? And then consistently go down. I was getting like 110, right? And now we can, at a certain time, well, we maybe need to be able to put that into a longer distance. But for now, like, let's just get that consistent in the 1.0s. So then even if you can hold something closer to that for even 40 meters, like that's way better than you being better at holding or getting to like 115 or 40 meters, like going down and getting 10 meters for 1.0 will make it so now you're going to be able to hold that for longer. Even if you, by the time you get to 40, you're at 115 or 120 because you have no endurance at the time, that still will average out way better. You know what I'm saying? And so that's why I'm big on like making it so you're getting faster. And especially too, because the workout is just way less load on your body. You know, like you're putting so much. Yeah. You're putting so much on yourself when you are running 100 meters or 200 meters. Right? Like there's some people that are like 200-meter sprints and the next day squats and cleans and plyos, right? And it's like, dude, when is your, I get it. Like it's great work and everything, but sometimes it's better to work smarter than harder. Like you don't always need to be putting in just like super intense hard work, or you can't always measure quality of a workout based off of how tired you are at the end. Like it's not always about how tired you are. A lot of times, especially when it comes to your long-term vision, it's a much more about what were your mechanics, like how well were you able to work within a quality rep. And that's why and I know you've watched me do my programs and stuff like that. That's why I like to have a wide variety of different areas that I'm attacking within the body, because I don't want a particular area to be so fatigued that now it's not able to balance at the same quality. It's not able to have the same type of overall, like maybe injury prevention standards or balance standards or cutting or even when you get to top speed, not being able to sustain there. So if you do too much, now you're at risk for overuse, right?
I get it. And that's actually something that I caught my eye when I started working with you like 4 to 5 months ago, was like, we're getting exercises done, we're getting movements done, but we're not doing like 3 to 4 or 5 sets of that one exercise. We're doing 1 to 2 sets of this exercise. We move on to the next exercise, but you're working that same qualities, same movement. Absolutely, that's you have a point there. Good.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's like in a way what I try to think of it is like you're working a global system. Let's say sprinting. You have a sprint. In between the sprint, we're going to potentially work your hip flexors. We're going to potentially work your hamstrings. We're going to potentially work your glutes. We're going to potentially work your ankles, your calves, just based off of your ankle range and things like that, based off what we're seeing in your mechanics. So now, and I go through the explanation of like, all right, so the reason why we did, let's say, a single leg curl, right, is because when we watch you sprint here, your ability to get your heel to your butt or bend your knee is not fast enough. Like we need more speed here, right? Or we need more height within the heel in general. And that doesn't necessarily mean that they're weak within the hamstrings. That's not the idea, is to say, okay, yeah, just strengthen the hamstrings. The idea is to train the brain, or start to train the brain. What is the muscle group that needs to be addressed or improved? And now when you put it into sprinting, now there's no resistance. So now it's a lot easier and more effective, and they just connected their brain to that muscle. So now they have the ability to actually do it. And then it really helps too when you can do that, and then they go from running 17 miles an hour to 18 miles an hour or something like that.
And you can see that immediate click when they see it,
Mm-hmm.
and then they see that before and after video, and then they got a much higher heel recovery and their knees coming through.
Yeah.
And it's obvious when that time like has dropped.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, and to get back to the force velocity profiling and how you would use that. So, because I think it's important, right, to be able to say, based off of where you're at and I guess if you're working with a team, do you break up the workouts into maybe like every 4 weeks, 6 weeks, something like that? Or how do you, or like certain programs, or how do you kind of like do your programming in general?
I mean, I guess that depends on what team I'm working with, how long I'm going to be seeing this team. But generally, yeah, I kind of have like a 2 to 3 week, 4 week phase of like we're working certain qualities.
Okay. And so then what are you trying to do? Like, do you have like certain times when you are like trying to go more for speed or more for strength? Like, what type of maxes do you typically do?
You're saying like max lifts, huh?
Yeah.
Dang. To be honest, I have not worked with a team yet where we, at least at the high school level, where I get in the weight room with them, and we've been that consistent where we get to like test max, and I, at least as a coach, feel comfortable enough to do that with them.
Okay. What would that take? Like, what would you feel comfortable to max with? Like how long?
Like how long of a progression?
Yeah. Or even like in any individual,
like a 6 to 10 week period, right?
Consistent.
It would really. I mean, it's not to say you can't safely test the max after like 3 weeks, 4 weeks, right? But yeah, I would say like a true max maybe after like a good 6 to 10 weeks.
Yeah. And usually what I do is I do like a little bit more. Like the first time that whenever I'm starting a new season with a team, new off season, new lifting season or whatever, and we'll work for, let's say, 4 to 6 weeks. The first max I usually do is 5 reps or everything. And just to get an idea. Yeah, I eventually go to ones, but never the first one. The second one I always do ones, but the first one I always do 5, just to make it so they're a little bit more used to like max day, right? And just having kind of the understanding, because I think it's a little bit too intense to just go to 1, because there's a lot of uncertainties in a lot of areas.
I personally like 3 rep maxes. I think that's a more accurate like test of strength. I mean, obviously lifting something one time is but if you can rock something heavy for like 3 reps, I think.
Yeah, I like 3 to 5. What would you recommend lifting? You're a sprinter. What do you think you should be lifting? What lifts are important?
It's like a really loaded question. I really enjoy like fast lifts.
Okay.
With a moderate to heavy weight. It goes back to using like force velocity stuff. Like to stay within a certain range. Nothing extremely heavy where I'm taxing like the nervous system too much. But yeah, just kind of within like 3 to 5 reps, moderately heavy and moving it fast.
Yeah.
And certain exercises, I like certain like Olympic lifts, like cleans, trap bar deadlift, like trap bar jumps, snap downs, just really fast movements, putting the brakes on, getting into eccentrics fast.
And what do you think that sprinters are like what do they not have enough of in terms of their programming? Like what's something that they maybe are not using enough of?
Just as general, like all sprinters. That's a tough one. I would think maybe more strength-based exercises. I think
what particular muscle group? Calves, glute med.